never forget the sight of that abomination approaching my friend. It is a massive beast, and it has the same kind of muscle tone as a Russian power lifter. It has the body of a hairless horse, and is covered in scars of all different sizes and shapes. Some look like the scars of a knife wound, but others look more like bullet holes. Its skin is a putrid pinkish red color. It has the hind legs of a horse, but instead of having 4 legs, it has a pair of massive, muscular human arms with human hands. The nails of the hands are at least an inch long, sharp-looking, and black in color. It has a long rat-like tail, I'd estimate a length of roughly 7 to 8 feet, with a few sparse patches of dark brown or black hair. The abomination is at least 20 feet long and 6 feet at the shoulder. Its neck is like a foot long, but probably like 2 feet in diameter. I now notice the long, semi-curved horns protruding from its head, like those of a goat. You probably know what I'm talking about now, and if you don't, it's the Jersey Devil. It touches down on all fours like 30 or 40 feet in front of Greg. Greg fires his .22 at it and hits it square in the chest. It doesn't acknowledge being shot at all. It walks on all fours and reaches for Greg, who is in the middle of reloading his rifle. I don't want this fucking eating my friend. I call it some racial slurs, can't remember which. Slide the bolt into place. I take aim. Pull the trigger and fire. I hit it right next to its right eye. This it notices. It rears up on its hind legs, clutching its eye, roaring louder than a police siren. Roar is different this time, it is still loud and deep, but now it also has the sound of a dying cat. Frank and Max stop running and see the predicament that me and Greg are in. They draw their rifles and fire at it, drop the rifles, draw their handguns, and sprint over to where I am. This only seems to anger the beast more, as it grabs Greg. Greg screams in pain and several audible snaps are heard. Max and Frank shoot at its torso. It throws Greg into a light post and begins to advance on us, and we back up. I see something behind it, a light. I squint my eyes. It's a cop car. I'm hoping that he can call backup or help us shoot it. As the monster quickens its pace, the cop arrives. To everyone's surprise, the car slams into the monster. The monster is sent sprawling. 2 cops exit the vehicle and pull out very shiny lever-action rifles, I think that they were for 45 to 70 government, and start to shoot it. It screams like it did when I hit it in the head and contorts its body in pain each time one of the cops fires another round into it. We get the idea and join in the shooting. At some point, the abomination must have decided that we were not worth the pain, got up on all fours, and ran into the woods. After we were sure that it had left, the 3 of us run over to check on Greg. We make sure that he is still alive. He is, and then me, Max, and Frank talk to the cops. What in the hell was that? Max asks. They act as if he said nothing. You boys sure are lucky that the 2 of us were driving down the road, one of the cops, a blonde, chubby guy, says. Those rabid buck are violent as hell and a damn sure menace with their antlers. You were not packing anywhere near enough firepower. Me and Frank are about to call his lie, but the other cop, an older looking man, gives us a death stare that shuts us up. The only thing that you ever saw attack your friend was a large buck with a bad case of rabies, he flatly says, nothing else. The cops get an ambulance for Greg and took us to the hospital. Greg had fractured his tailbone, broken several ribs, and broke his right shoulder blade. No one at the hospital asks us what happened after we tell them that it was a rabid buck. Frank calls up Greg's cousin and explains the scenario, minus the monster. The rest of us were fine, minus bruises and scratches. And there you have it. Greg recovered, though he will never be as fit or capable as he used to be. The 4 of us still keep in touch, as our only validation that this was real, that this really did happen, is the fact that we all know what we saw, and that we all saw the same thing. I'm the only one on us who still enjoys hiking in the woods, but that is probably because I live in Colorado, far away from New Jersey or the Pine Barrens. But every once in a while, if I have an exceptionally bad day at work or go to sleep very stressed, it visits me in my dreams, chasing me. Here's OP's drawing of what he saw.
Foreword of The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects by Edward Ruppel. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Roger Moline. The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects by Edward Ruppel. Foreword. This is a book about unidentified flying objects, UFOs, flying saucers. It is actually more than a book, it is a report, because it is the first time that anyone, either military or civilian, has brought together in one document all the facts about this fascinating subject. With the exception of the style, this report is written exactly the way I would have written it had I been officially asked to do so while I was chief of the Air Force's project for investigating UFO reports, Project Blue Book. In many instances, I have left out the names of the people who were reported seeing UFOs, or the names of certain people who were associated with the project, just as I would have done in an official report. For the same reason, I have changed the locale in which some of the UFO sightings occurred. This is especially true in Chapter 15, the story of how some of our atomic scientists detected radiation whenever UFOs were reported near their UFO detection stations. This policy of not identifying the source, to borrow a term from military intelligence, is insisted on by the Air Force so that the people who have cooperated with them will not get any unwanted publicity. Names are considered to be classified information. But the greatest care has been taken to make sure that the omission of names and changes in locale has in no way altered the basic facts, because this report is based on the facts, all of the facts. Nothing of significance has been left out. It was only after considerable deliberation that I put this report together, because it had to be told accurately, with no holds barred. I finally decided to do it for two reasons. First, there is a worldwide interest in flying saucers. People want to know the facts, but more often than not, these facts have been obscured by secrecy and confusion, a situation that has led to wild speculation on one end of the scale, and an almost dangerously blasé attitude on the other. It is only when all of the facts are laid out that a correct evaluation can be made. Second, after spending 2 years investigating and analyzing UFO reports, after talking to the people who have seen UFOs, industrialists, pilots, engineers, generals, and just the plain man on the street, and after discussing the subject with many very capable scientists, I felt that I was in a position to be able to put together the complete account of the Air Force's struggle with the flying saucer. The report has been difficult to write because it involves something that doesn't officially exist. It is well known that ever since the first flying saucer was reported in June of 1947, the Air Force has officially said that there is no proof that such a thing as an interplanetary spaceship exists. But what is not well known is that this conclusion is far from being unanimous among the military and their scientific advisors because of the one word, proof. So the UFO investigations continue. The hassle over the word proof boils down to one question. What constitutes proof? Does a UFO have to land at the river entrance to the Pentagon, near the Joint Chiefs of Staff offices? Or is it proof when a ground radar station detects a UFO, sends a jet to intercept it, the jet pilot sees it and locks on with his radar, only to have the UFO streak away at a phenomenal speed? Is it proof when a jet pilot fires at a UFO and sticks to his story even under the threat of court-martial? Does this constitute proof? The at times hotly debated answer to this question may be the answer to the question, do the UFOs really exist? I'll give you the facts, all of the facts. You decide. July 1955. E. J. Ruppelt. End of foreword. Recording by Roger Moline. Chapter 1 of The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Roger Moline. The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects by Edward Ruppelt. Chapter 1. Project Blue Book and the UFO Story. In the summer of 1952, a United States Air Force F-86 jet interceptor shot at a flying saucer. This fact, like so many others that make up the full flying saucer story, has never before been told. I know the full story about flying saucers, and I know that it has never before been told because I organized and was chief of the Air Force's Project Blue Book, the special project set up to investigate and analyze unidentified flying object, or UFO, reports. UFO is the official term that I created to replace the words. There's a fighter base in the United States which I used to visit frequently because during 1951, 1952, and 1953, it got more than its share of good UFO reports. The commanding officer of the fighter group, a full colonel and command pilot, believed that UFOs were real. The colonel believed in UFOs because he had a lot of faith in his pilots, and they had chased UFOs in their F-86s. He had seen UFOs on the scopes of his radar sets, and he knew radar. The colonel's intelligence officer, a captain, didn't exactly believe that UFOs were real, but he did think that they warranted careful investigation. The logic the intelligence officer used in investigating UFO reports, and in getting answers to many of them, made me wish many times that he worked for me on Project Blue Book. One day the intelligence officer called me at my base in Dayton, Ohio. He wanted to know if I was planning to make a trip his way soon. When I told him I expected to be in his area in about a week, he asked me to be sure to look him up. There was no special hurry, he added, but he had something very interesting to show me. When we got wind of a good story, Project Blue Book liked to start working on it at once, so I asked the intelligence officer to tell me what he had. But nothing doing. He didn't want to discuss it over the phone. He even vetoed the idea of putting it into a secret wire. Such extreme caution really stopped me, because anything can be coded and put in a wire. When I left Dayton about a week later, I decided to go